Josh Skelton wants to know when BMAC will land a 5-star wide receiver, and Rhett Womack quick to point out that Nikar and Nitro Tuggle are already borderline 5-stars and they're going to rise. I don't know what your take is on this, Roos or Palmer. I think when it comes to receivers, Georgia's shown that they can evaluate and get what they need, whether or not they're 5-star guys. I know losing out Tennessee with Mike Matthews with the in-state guy in out of Parkview is pretty tough. But I mean, when you look at the numbers and the data on which position group enters the portal the most as well, I feel like Georgia, whether or not they sign 5-star wide receivers class in and class out, over the past couple seasons, I've seen nothing to show that they still can't land elite talent at that wide receiver group regardless.
Yeah. I think I tell people this on the board all the time, and I think that it is true, really. The portal is the wide receiver position is probably the best position to go into the portal to get. There's a lot of bodies that enter that year in and year out. And there are guys who are going to want to come in and play for a team like Georgia that's playing the way Georgia is and where it's at right now. You're seeing it prove positive with Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett. Those guys, it's not that those guys weren't getting touches elsewhere. I mean, they were the leading receivers on their respective teams. They wanted to be in a place where they could develop their game further, where they could be on the biggest stages, where they could possibly, make a run at a national championship. And so Georgia's able to do that. And they're able to provide them that experience in addition to, putting a lot of NFL eyes on them, which is the goal as well. Now, Georgia hasn't necessarily had to go to the portal for that reason a lot, but there were other names that we heard mentioned. Grant DeBose was one of them from Charlotte that I remember very well. But there were some other names that were kicked around. I think it's probably the most effective place to go out and find a difference maker guy. And if you can supplement a class of 2 to 3 guys that you really like with a guy who has proven it at the college level, I think that's a pretty ideal setup moving forward each year. Listen, 5-star wide receivers are exciting. They're great pieces to have, and they're amazing to watch. Jeremiah Smith is going to be a baller. There's no question about it. 10 out of 10 times, I would bet the house that Jeremiah Smith is going to be a dude at the next level. I can see where he's coming from going to play for Brian Hartline, though. I mean, it's the same reason that you don't give linebackers shit for not going to or for going to play under Glenn Schumann. I mean, it is what it is. The proof's in the pudding, man.
Well, and I can understand why Mike Matthews would go play in Josh Heupel's system too.
Sure.
I mean, I think what will be very interesting to see is how Georgia's offense operates this year with Mike Bobo and maybe a more traditional pocket passer as a quarterback. Do they put up those crazy numbers? Do they get a 1,000-yard receiver? If they do that, then I think that they've got a better chance at landing one of these 5-star guys. Maybe not this year, but look ahead at the class of 2025, and they've had a couple of those kids on campus already. I don't think that they're going to get one in 2024, and I think that they're okay with that.
I don't think so either.
They would have loved to land one of them. I don't think it's in the cards, and I think that they are okay with that because they trust the evaluations that they've made. And Nikar, look, he's the number 13 receiver, but he's the number 67 player in the country. A lot of years that would be a top, for
and
sure,
I think
top 10 receiver, maybe a top 5 guy.
I think he has a chance to continue to climb. He's going to go to IMG and play against some of the best talent in America, including Ellis Robinson. And so he's going to have a chance to show that he's a dude. And I mean, the film says that he is, but how does it translate to that next level of talent? We'll see.
Nitro, you're talking about. I was saying
Nitro. Yes, Nitro. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, Nitro and Nye, that does get kind of confusing.
Yeah. Sacred Grove over here mentioned too in the comments that you need another George Pickens. And I've been on that. I've been blowing that horn for a while too. You listen, Georgia's wide receiver legacy is pretty slim. You were leaning on that AJ Green train hard for several years, well over a decade. Pickens needs to go into this league and, really turn himself into one of the elite receivers, which I think he can. And that's going to boost Georgia's profile further at that position. And you're going to be able to draw bigger off of that. But guys want to know they can get drafted. They want to know that they can get touches. They want to know that they're going to be ready for the next level. Georgia's still got to prove that.
And
I think until you go ahead, Palmer.
I was just going to say, and as Dylan points out, it's a lot of mouths to feed. That's exactly why a 5-star receiver doesn't want to come to Georgia, because it's so many mouths to feed. They want to be, the lone mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, until a guy like Pickens or AJ Green comes along again, and both of those guys had some different circumstances that led them to Georgia. They were unconventional talents that didn't really see the writing on the wall that Georgia would use a guy like them, but they still chose to come to Georgia anyway. And until Georgia has another guy like that come along, the negative recruiting, the reality of, I'm not looking at Georgia as a place to shine if I am a big dog wideout. And I'm not saying that the guys in Georgia's class right now aren't. They could prove themselves to be like that. But you're not going to get a Jeremiah Smith kind of player until Georgia's offense starts to show, okay, we've done this before with a talent like this, and we built the offense around them. And Georgia just hasn't had to do that. And I think that's a testament to the depth that they have at every other position. They don't need to have a 1,000-yard receiver because they're getting the ball to everybody else.
Well, and it's that depth at other positions that ultimately and ironically could be what holds Georgia back. They could end up getting a 1,000-yard receiver, but it could be a tight end.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think too, there's something to be said for the guys who've come in and chosen to be Bulldogs. I mean, knowing that that's the case, right? I mean, there's an unselfishness there. There's a willingness. You're going to have to spend a lot of time blocking. Tyler Williams, Sacred Grove mentions, I'm as high on Tyler Williams as anybody out there. I think that Tyler Williams is a hell of a player. A little bit raw, spent a lot of time playing basketball, but has all the upside in the world. And one of those guys that's going to be able to get out there and, help you in the blocking game, but is also going to be able to create as well in the receiving game. I think you continue approaching it from that way. And look, you're going to get some guys drafted after this year. Lad McConkey is going to be taken probably in a pretty good spot, and you're going to be able to sell that pretty soon. You're going to be able to sell, hey, we took this guy that almost no one knew about, and we turned him into an NFL draft pick like they did with Stetson Bennett. So that's the kind of stuff that appeals to guys. That's the kind of stuff that sells. That's the kind of stuff that helps you land guys.